Asian American women are amongst the most likely to be targeted and the least likely to report it because of cultural norms. There was a really important study that came out from McKinsey, and it was an updated study, a 10-year retrospective of the state of women in the workplace. And the headline is, things are getting worse, particularly for women of color.
Oh my God. That is absolutely shocking.
It's actually rampant.
Vicky Tsai.
Vicky Tsai.
Vicky Tsai
Is a Taiwanese American who founded the luxury skincare brand Tatcha, which was inspired by Japanese beauty traditions and later sold to Unilever for $500 million.
She is a graduate from Wellesley College and Harvard Business School, and now she focuses her energy on philanthropy and impact serving as a global board member.
She also mentors entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds, helping them navigate the path to leadership with purpose and integrity.
It's just that people didn't see it because there was like this really slick marketing veneer over it that said, we support DEI and we support women and we support small businesses. In my experience, it's almost never truly been true.
Welcome back to Big Asian Energy. Today's guest is no regular, ordinary guest. We've had entrepreneurs, we've had incredible human beings, we've had teachers, educators, ceiling breakers, troublemakers on the show all this time. But there's always been one person in the back of my mind. I'm like, the show's not truly done until we get her on the show. So I'm going to start with there. Thank you for being here.
First of all, thank you. And I reached out because I'm a fan. I wish you were my coach 25 years ago. My career would have been easier, a lot less therapy. I'm recommending this book to everybody. And I just want to say I'm so proud of you. It's so well researched. It's written with so much heart and so much positive intention. It's easy for people to talk about the problems, but what we really need is to focus on solutions. And I think that the way that you embody your purpose of Big Asian Energy, it's about harnessing what makes us amazing and moving forward rather than being stuck in the problems. There's a lot of problems in the world. We can acknowledge them, but also let's keep going. So that's what you do in this book. You give a template for how to better understand yourself and how to move through this world purposefully with joy. You know, I think you did an amazing job. I'm so proud of you. You should be so proud of yourself.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, this is a CEO who has created a nine figure brand. Yeah. Who has created something so magical and so powerful. And I'm just so grateful to have you here. Okay, let's start diving in. Okay, so for those who don't know who Vicky is, she is a powerhouse of absolutely an incredible entrepreneur, and not only that, but a voice for so many people. You may, even if you haven't heard of her messaging or her story or anything like that, chances are your life was or probably been affected by somebody who she has helped. And that's actually the thing, is that she, from the number of people who I've spoken to who she mentors, she is not just an entrepreneur and a founder and a leader in so many ways. She is also a mentor, and I would say, the kind of people who we look at who say they send the elevator down, once they're at the top. And everyone who I have spoken to about Vicky has given the same response back, which is, if you have her on your team, you would truly, truly be stopless. Sorry, you would truly be unstoppable, because she puts her whole heart into the belief in the people around her. So, thank you. All right, I could go on for several hours about this, but I really want to get to sharing your wisdom. So, Vicky, I just want to say, first and foremost, you've gone through a lot in your life. In your business, you have founded a business that was sold for $500 million. Tatcha was sold to Unilever. And, you've built, you earned your MBA from Harvard Business School. You've all of these things. I'm curious, along the journey, what would you say were, perhaps one or even many biggest turning points?
Turning points. Oh, gosh. One. If I had to chart my sense of self-worth from the time that I started my career until now, it would look like a long V where the descent was super, super, super low. We would cross the x-axis into negative territory, fellow math geeks. and only in the last 5 years did I hit the J curve and start to come back up. And so when you ask me about turning points, it makes me think of two distinct moments, or three. Sort of, when did I sort of lose my sense of self-worth? When did it hit the rock bottom? And when did it turn around? I think I started losing my sense of self-worth when my resume started looking really pretty.
Interesting.
I had, an economics degree from Wellesley, and then I went to Wall Street and I was a credit derivatives trader. Then I went to Harvard Business School and worked for Procter Gamble and Starbucks. My resume looked so pretty, but the way that I was treated in the American business world, and the way that I internalized my treatment, really started making my sense of self-worth collapse. And, before people called it imposter syndrome, I know there's issues with that because it implies that there's something wrong with the person who feels it. But I don't think we have a replacement term for it yet. So for lack of a better word, I felt like I didn't belong in these spaces, and there was something about me that made me deserve to be treated in despicable ways. And then I eventually started my own company because I thought I couldn't make it in the corporate world. And I thought Tatcha would be an Etsy-sized business. That's all I ever wanted, was just to be able to survive, find a way to keep studying these things in Japan that healed my skin and my soul, and share it with other people. It grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And when it grew big, it sort of brought the American business world back into my home, because Tatcha became my home and my family. And I had to wrestle with the same demons that I wrestled with when I worked in corporate America. And even though I was in my late 30s, early 40s, the burden of that self-doubt had only actually increased, especially, externally. There was articles about me and it looks like I made it. And it looks like I just sort of jumped from one gilded lily pad to the next. But, internally it felt like surviving a gauntlet of abuse, that I felt like I deserved. And then eventually, in 2019, after someone at a private equity company said, we think you need to hire a real CEO and a real leadership team, I fired myself, and I warmly welcomed a new leadership team of people who I thought, how lucky am I that I'd be able to, learn at their knee. I get to be a student again. Maybe I'll learn how to run this company after all. And 2 years later, so now this is the next turning point, I had to go back as CEO a second time and execute a turnaround. And watching other people lead my company for 2 years, and lead it to a point where one would require a turnaround, made me finally see my skills for the first time in my life. And the second time around, I went back and I led without the burden of self-doubt, without that heavy, heavy sort of boulder of I'm not good enough. And the second time around, it was a joy. It was an absolute, I felt free. And then I hired a new leadership team to replace me again. But this time I hired people who might not have had the exact experience on paper, but they had the exact character and talent that we needed. And we actually put in place the first leadership team of color in beauty at scale in the year 2021. Because in the cosmetics business, almost none of the businesses are run by women. And certainly almost none of them are run by women of color, not for companies at scale. When they're little, they're itty bitty ones, the founders are largely women. So lots of women founder
Yeah.
CEOs. As soon as you get bigger and you bring in capital, you get replaced with men, usually French men. And then, and then as the company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, the entire leadership team becomes male. And so in 2021, there was only 3 out of the top 20 manufacturers had female CEOs. And none of them were women of color. But I'm very proud to say that the CEO who took over after me the second time, her name is Mary Yee. She's amazing. She's the best CEO we've ever had. She can run laps around me. And she was a contemporary of mine from Harvard Business School. And she has an incredible, diverse team around her that they're just doing amazing things. I'm so, so, so proud of them. And my job now is just to be their supporters and their cheerleaders and always remind them that you got this. And I'm so proud of you. You're doing an amazing job. I'm going to send all of them this book to remind them they are doing a great job.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure that encouragement means the world. I think when I think about what you're referring to, I mean, the first thing I was experiencing is shock. I'm surprised that, especially in the world of cosmetics, that it would be such a male-dominated industry. You would think that women would understand the needs of the consumers, because I'm guessing that most cosmetics are not purchased by men. So my first question is, in your experience, when you're talking about before this transformation, in the early stages, before you recognize your own self-worth, you talked about the experiences that you ran into. Can you share a little bit more about those?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I've actually never spoken about them before, so I will share them here with you the first time, because I was working on a book the last 3 years. And when I showed them to the publisher I thought that I was going to work with, she said, the thing is, none of this would happen today. There's HR departments. So I'm not sure it's going to be relevant to women today. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't finish the last couple chapters, but it went through 2020, still today. The early part of my career on Wall Street, I would say that the biggest theme was sexual assault by my managers. Never spoken about that publicly, so there's a story, you get that one. Yeah, they would put their hands up my shirt, down my pants. They would tie it to my bonuses. It was horrific, and I blamed myself. I thought I must have done something to make them think that that was okay. I never reported them. I never complained. I just quit the company and would go to another company. And then it would happen again. And then it would happen again.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm just processing that for a second. That is absolutely shocking. And the truth is, I'm willing to bet that this is still happening. The reality is that we are still constantly hearing about it in pockets. I think that people are less exposed to it. The media seems to have moved on from it, but I absolutely think that it is still continued.
I don't think it's pockets. I think it's actually rampant. I think all you have to do is look at, I think the American business world, I can't speak of the Canadian business world, but I think the culture of American business world has spilled out into the public for people to see because of the current administration, because it's run by business people. And so Doge and all of the things that you're hearing in the American headline news, Elon Musk, all of the, questions around ethics and treatments of people and just how you run things. What we're seeing in the American headlines now is the American business world. It was before and it was now. So what I experienced is just the reality. It doesn't happen to everybody equally, though. So by some studies, Asian American women are amongst the most likely to be targeted and the least likely to report it because of cultural norms. There was a really important study that came out from McKinsey last year or earlier this year, and it was an updated study, a 10-year retrospective of how the state of women in the workplace. I encourage everybody to go look at it. It's free if you go online. And the headline is, things are getting worse, particularly for women of color.
Wow.
Yeah. I wish it was happier news, but it's not.
No, but it's important. I think that if we just focus on suggesting that it's done, and I think that there is almost this desire from, I would say, large pockets of the media who just kind of want to be like, okay, we've moved on from it. We're no longer really interested in it. But that is what's actually causing it to really come back, because we are seeing it. It always starts at the very, very top. And when we see people at the very top who are most prominently shown in the media and they're acting in ways that are damaging and outright abusive, and there's a sense of, oh, but it's okay because he is making money or he is whatever it is, it gives permission all the way down to continue that same narrative.
It's in the culture.
Always,
it's in the air. It is the norm right now, and it has always been. It's just that people didn't see it because there was like this really slick marketing veneer over it that said, you know, we support DEI and we support women and we support small businesses. In my experience, it's almost never truly been true.
Let's dive into that a little bit more, because I remember you and I had a conversation at one point and you talked about giving a talk at Harvard Business School. Do you remember that event in which you're speaking to not just, I think, a wide, diverse group of students, and you talked about the treatment, especially around competence and how people are seen, and Asian Americans. Do you remember that experience?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, I'd love to share it. So early on in my career, I got performance reviews. And every single I was the person who killed myself to over deliver because Asian. So 80 to 100 hour work weeks, you know, better, faster, ask for more, never complain. You ask me for 100, I will give you 150. And yet I constantly got performance reviews that were, it meets expectations. And it usually had a qualitative, there's like a what and a how. And the what is, you know, what did you achieve? And that part was always 100%. And then in terms of the how, there was always this sort of bucket for what is your leadership potential? And it was always rated below average. And when I asked, but the boxes were empty. There was no feedback, no specifics that are actionable. And because I've always been told that feedback is a gift and I want to be humble, when I would see these performance reviews, I would say, thank you so much for the feedback. Please, can you tell me what my action plan would be to have better leadership potential? What evidence can I study about where I failed here? And where can I get better, please? And I always got nothing. Just nothing. But if you get a meets expectations score, that means you're not up for promotion, you're not up for raise, you're not up for new opportunities. So then you just sort of tread water, and that's what the bamboo ceiling is, treading water. And that's part of what also really made my sense of self-worth collapse, because I thought it doesn't matter if I work myself to exhaustion and I deliver what they say. There's something clearly in my fundamental character, my DNA, that makes me not leadership material, and I can't put my finger on it. And it doesn't matter if I went to Harvard Business School, it doesn't matter if my resume is perfect. I can already see that this ladder is lying on the ground. I'm going to spend my whole career going exactly nowhere. So fast forward, after Tatcha had some success, there was a Harvard Business School case written about us, and it's taught in a second-year course by a guy named Professor Jeffrey Jones, and it's the capstone case. And so I go back and I help teach the case study each year. And in this case study, which, again, anybody can find online, it's probably $8 at Harvard Business Review, you can go read it. I talked about my early career and continuing to get these, very clear signals from corporate America that I did not have leadership potential. And then Tatcha ended up doing pretty well. And I also included in there studies, like the studies that I shared with you, that showed, the Harvard Business Review article, this is before COVID, the headline was, Asian Americans are the least likely demographic in America to be promoted into leadership. Asian American women are specifically the single least likely demographic. We make up less than 0.01% of corporate directors. And so I included all this data. And at Harvard Business School, it's, it's a case study method. And so they are discussing the merits of the case and, debating the merits of the case, and I sit there and listen. And at the end, one of the students said, is it a possibility that the reason that she was getting these performance reviews is because she really didn't have what it took to make it in corporate America? And maybe they did her a favor by letting her know that, because then she started her own company and it worked out well for her. So good for her. But like, what if it was just true? And so when I addressed the class at the end, I said, I want to address this point. Maybe they were right. I had no leadership potential. Somehow I created this company and it worked out. Okay. But you're right. Maybe I had no leadership potential, but I'm curious for the people in this room. There's 90 students in this room. How many of you have gotten a performance review like this, that you are lacking leadership potential? Please put your hand up. And when they put their hands up, they were almost all Asian.
Wow.
And I said, now everybody look at whose hands up in the room. What do we have in common? And I said, this is Harvard Business School. You're here because you have leadership potential.
Yeah.
And yet you can see that with the demographic breakdown. And so even when faced with the data, people will still say, but what if it is true though? What if you're not actually a leader? Yeah.
Wow. This story, I wish that this story was the first of its kind that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
But the reality is that actually, I've spoken to so many Asian leaders, especially female leaders, Asian female leaders on the show, and, in just interviewing people, doing the research for the book. And it is probably the first thing I hear time and time and time again. I was interviewing somebody recently, and she made a point. She was talking to a high level C-level leader, and she asked her, she's like, are you going to try to be seen as being kind or being competent? Because you can't be both. If you are an Asian woman, you cannot be both kind and competent at the same time. You cannot be seen as kind and competent at the same time. So you could be the dragon lady, and just be super mean to everybody, or you could be the cute one who nobody's going to take you seriously. And this is a conversation I've had this week. This is something that we are still seeing constantly, day in, day out, and yet nothing is being done to address it. So finally, we have a live example of somebody who came out on the other side. So for your experience, after you had come through all of this, and again, you put into, you had a new CEO, and that clearly didn't work out. So you stepped back into leadership. Who is the new Vicky who stepped into that role? And is there a difference?
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of stuff that happened in the 2 years that I was not CEO. And, one of the most significant things was watching my company get hurt, because I never created this company for money. I created this company because I needed a place in this world where I could feel safe, and I could have a chosen second family where we could be inspired by each other and be authentic with each other, and learn and create and do something positive in the world. And not only did we create a cosmetics company that I hope makes people feel beautiful in their own skin, but we also fund gender equality and girls' education globally. So throughout Southeast Asia and South Africa, every time we sell a product, we send a girl to school. And we've crossed 12 million days of school last year. These would be girls that could be sold into childhood prostitution, forced factory work, forced childhood marriage. And instead, they're going to stay in school. They're going to learn rights over their bodies, rights over their money, rights over their future. And when you educate a generation of girls, they can lift their entire community out of poverty in 2 generations. So it's not just a cosmetics company to me. It's my family. It's my place in the world. And it's a platform for world change. And that's not an overstatement. As this company grows, we keep more and more girls in low-income countries out of the most dire situations, and we give them a more beautiful future and their families. So those 2 years while I'm sitting there and I'm watching it crumble, it was not just like watching my life's work crumble. It broke my heart. And because it meant so much more to me than just a company. It was so much of what I loved in this world, in the place where I raised my child, where my husband worked, where, you know, and then going back and turning it around was successful, but there was a lot lost in the process too. There's always a cost to these things. And so what got me through that time was, honestly, rage. Complete and utter rage. Because I think also as Asian people, we are told to suppress our anger. And I let it fuel me. And in that process, it burned off this layer that I had, this layer that was like a mask. And I had masked for so long, and I had been a chameleon for so long, and a people pleaser for so long. That's why I said I'm all the characters in your book. That like the mask became me, and it was like a tomb. Like I couldn't even move, and it burned off. And then now on the other side, I couldn't contort myself into a pleasing Asian archetype if I tried. I'm no longer capable of doing that. And I love being free. And I want that for everybody. Just to be able to be authentic and to be able to move through this world as their most authentic self. And I think that the lessons in your book really help people do that. So thank you. Again, I needed you 25 years ago when you were 8.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could have written that book back then. I think I needed to go through that burning off. For me, it wasn't rage. For me, it was grief. And the grief from losing and accepting. Really, so much of it came from my own childhood shame.
And you know that famous saying, I think it's C.S. Lewis, I sat with my anger long enough until she introduced herself to me as grief.
Oh, I hadn't heard that, but that's beautiful.
I might have said it wrong and misattributed it, so we should double check it, but it's very true. So my rage burned off and it turned into grief. And then after grief, I had to deal with my shame. And then I realized that the shame comes from the part that just wants to be loved, because we all deserve to be loved. And then I realized that the heart of it is just self-love. So now I just operate in love. Love for everyone, for everything. But yeah.
And it's an easy thing to talk about. It's so funny that we're, in my mind, I'm like, great, we're going to talk about leadership and breaking through and all these kind of things. But true, like at the core of it, the real thing, and I'm so glad that we actually get to touch on this, is self-love. And then that self-love gets to then convert to all love.
Sorry, that's my dog. You're saying something so profound.
It's totally fine.
Well, here's a connection, I think, between leadership and what you're saying, which is, what if leadership isn't just about making it into the C-suite? What if leadership is actually an experience in part of our life's journey for some of us, and it's actually an experience of self-actualization, and the process itself is sort of your playground to learn what you're made of.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How did you, like, what do you mean by the C-suite? I have an idea of what you're saying, but what do you mean by going through leadership? Because I think most people, when they think leadership, it means I get more money, I get higher status, and I get paid more. So what do you mean by maybe that's a path to self-actualization?
Yeah, so what if okay, so there's a career ladder. And so
Okay.
people often focus on that promotions, pay, and then finally making it to some level of leadership that feels commensurate with your talents and your time. That's
Mhm.
one. And the bamboo ceiling is when it gets cut off. But what if, in addition to it being a career ladder, what if it is actually like really part of your personal development in your life's journey, where you look
Mm.
at these as experiences to learn what you're made of and to
Hmm.
hopefully along each rung get to shed some of the stuff that society and your own mixtape,
Mhm.
tells you,
Mhm.
and you can get closer and closer to knowing who you are, what drives
Mhm.
you, what your superpowers are, what your purpose is.
Mhm.
So for me, leadership has not been about being a CEO twice for a
Mhm.
decade. For me, leadership has been about going on a journey to find my truest self.
Hmm.
And the gauntlet of that journey is what gave me the opportunity to learn who I am and what I'm made of.
Hmm. That's pretty powerful. Hey, I just wanted to let you know that Big Asian Energy is officially out, and you can go and pick it up anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, etc. If you've ever felt like there's something stopping you from reaching your full potential, if you've ever felt like you want to have that unstoppable charisma and confidence in the work that you do, as well as just the way you show up in life, this might be the book for you. It is a book that is jam-packed with research studies, advice, case studies, stories, and of course, so many different techniques and takeaways, including communication, as well as mindset, as well as confidence, and all the other topics out there. It just won one of the best books of 2025 on Amazon. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go take a look. And finally, if you have a few seconds, can I also ask you to leave a quick review for Big Asian Energy? It not only means the world to us to hear from you, but more importantly, it does absolutely help us in reaching more audiences. I hope you're having an amazing day, and thanks again. I think back to your journey, and I'm going to preface this and say this. If you're listening to this, I really recommend, because, today we're diving into essentially what happened after that first journey that Vicky I went through in building Tatcha. But if you haven't heard that episode yet, I highly recommend it. It's really good, and the stories are absolutely incredible. It talks about how, she went from Wall Street and the events, I believe it was after 9/11,
Mm.
and how that led to you going to Japan and, I think pawning or selling your engagement ring and putting all of your money, I can't remember the exact amount, it's like 20 something thousand dollars, something along those lines, right? Where you put all of your money into this blotting paper, and
Mhm.
then that led to the journey itself. And when I think about that, that is already one of the most terrifying things I think somebody could go through. I mean, that was already a gauntlet. So coming out of that gauntlet and going back into this second gauntlet, so to speak, what was the difference in how you came to step into this? You talked about rage, but what was the mindset that you went through the second time around? I mean, wasn't there a part of you that just wanted to say, screw this? I've already done this already. I've already been the CEO. I'm ready to move on.
Mhm. I think the first time around when I was building the company, it was about me. What made me
Mm,
happy? What was my dream for this company? What did I want to achieve? And what did I want to express in the world?
mhm,
And that's pretty typical, I think, of a founder.
mhm,
But then I got to work for 10 years with these people who became my family, my friends, my mentors, my teachers, my colleagues. Our kids grew up together. I officiated their weddings. Literally this, they became like my blood. I
mm,
love these people. And the second time around, it was about them, them and the girls
mm,
that we support. And the love that really drove me the second time was not about what I wanted to create, but rather it was like a motherly love of like what I wanted to protect. Because this company isn't for me anymore. I don't, I don't benefit from it. I don't need to take anything from it. I want to create something that outlasts me, but a place where other people like me, and I don't just mean Asian women, but other people like me who feel called to help people feel, beautiful in their skin, who are inspired by, a lot of things that you can learn from Japan about, well-being, and then also supporting girls' education and gender equality globally. This is a platform for them, and I'll be damned if on my watch it's going to fall apart, because of some Doge style leadership for a couple of years in the company. So yeah, it was love for my company and the girls that we support, and a very, very, very clear sense of purpose that drove me a second time. And that's a much more powerful motivator, because my love for these people and my love and dedication to these girls that I've met, and many they'll never get to meet. It knows no end. I wake up and there's a fresh source of fuel every day.
I love that. We're trading in the drive for achievement and accomplishment because we're supposed to, for something that's much deeper.
Yeah.
It's purpose. It's meaning and values driven.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a powerful thing. It's like, and I think for a lot of people listening, there's probably a few of you who grew up with that pressure of, I need to overachieve. And I'm not overachieving. It's because I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Or if I'm not doing something wrong, then I am something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough. I'm not capable. I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And it is a lesson and a story and a narrative. And it's a story because it's not reality that I feel like gets repeated so often.
Yeah.
And as I'm thinking about this massive group of, sure, Asian American women, but truly anyone who are in this place right now, currently in society, it's a dark time. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's a dark time if you believe in equality and diversity and all these things, to kind of watch the whole world to kind of in some ways crumble and trying to grasp onto anything for hope. And this is where that self-doubt, and this is where that, we talked about imposter syndrome. And I love the way you pointed it out, is that imposter syndrome is seen as it's something of fault. Sure, we can say, oh, we just got to believe in ourselves. And sure, we can say self-love. But what would you say to so many of the younger people right now, maybe some that you're currently mentoring and coaching, to get them through that time of that, everything feels impossible?
Yeah. So I would say two things. One is, sometimes I feel like things are terrible right now. But other times I actually think that this is progress. And it goes back to the first point, which is, all this like anti-DEI, anti-woman, anti-all the things. They're just saying it out loud. They've always believed it. That's always been the case.
Yeah.
My experience, in the American business world for my entire career, for the last 25 years, it has been exactly the same. It's just that before there was like this veneer of marketing over it. But now they've all unmasked themselves. And so now it's out in public, but nothing's changed. It's always been like that. I think now, because we're acknowledging, like, okay, you guys said the quiet part out loud. The things that you only said in little rooms when you were amongst your own, now you say it out loud. So now we all know the truth about the areas in society where we need to have meaningful conversations. But unless you acknowledge it and you say the quiet part out loud, you can't have the conversations, and then you can't move forward. So I think the honesty that's coming out is the thing that we had to go through in order to get to the next spot. And I hope the next spot's a better spot. I believe in humanity. I believe we're going to get to a better spot. So, sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, it's really bad out there. And then I was like, no, Actually, so it's been like this. They just say it out loud now. So that's one.
Yeah.
The other is I'd like to take another crack at the last question that you asked me about what was the difference between, the first time with Tatcha and the second time. Because I think this is relevant to what you share with people. I think the first part of my career, I was driven. And the second part of my career, I felt called. And that's a really different thing. I think when you're driven, it's kind of like being driven like a car. It's like you have no agency. You have no idea why you're working 100-hour weeks. You have no idea why it matters to you that you get that title, why everybody thinks that you're great, why you have to be perfect all the time. And you're probably driven by the same stuff that makes you be a perfectionist, all the internal voices in your head and shame. So you don't know why you can't stop. You're just driven. And we say, oh, it's so great that person's driven. But I actually don't think it's a great thing. Whereas people who feel called to something, whether it's Martin Luther King, whether it is, anybody who has a sense of greater purpose that they're willing to work for, they might still work 80 to 100 hours a week. They might still be all in. But the way that it feels to have a life's work when you feel called to something, it's a very different feeling than when you're driven, but you don't know what it is that's driving you. So the second time I felt called, and I felt called to, try to create something lasting and try to do something for people I loved. Try to leave something behind. So, what would my advice be to people today? The good news about there being so many problems in the world is that you can pick any of them that you feel passionate about and say, that's the thing. Nobody's coming to save us. So pick your thing that you care about and run after it and be creative about how you tackle that problem with your career. I care about gender equality and I care about cosmetics. There was a way to marry it. So, there is an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the number of problems that you can choose. Pick one, anyone. And then you can find a calling, and then work is fun.
I love that. Pick one. It's so true though. It is absolutely so true. It's the push and pull. When we're in push or trying to make things happen, it is exhausting. Because the energy source comes from a not enoughness and because I should. It comes from a should rather than because I must. There's something so much bigger and so much deeper to the pull of going, okay, that's it. I think that
the pull is energizing.
Pull is energizing. Absolutely. It's like the compass and we're in line and let's go after it.
And I think the work that you do is, to me, why I love your energy is it feels like a calling. Because what you did was you took your own experiences and you're trying to lay a map out for other people like you to make things easier for them. If I had this 25 years ago, when you're 8, my career would have been so much more joyful. I would have had a completely different experience and sense of self. Even just learning about the word bamboo ceiling. I had never heard that word until 2021. Just finding out and seeing the numbers and finding out that it is a systemic issue, not a Vicky issue, that alone was so healing for me, because I had been believing it was a Vicky issue all this time. And Vicky still has issues, let me tell you, but this was not the one.
If only we are as aware of what it is that we're experiencing and how much of it weren't for us to carry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That wasn't ours. I love that saying sometimes, just there's stuff that's ours and there's stuff where we're here to heal and work on and crush and go through. And then there's stuff that's just not ours.
Yeah.
Like the systemic stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we need to just talk about it. And like, this is why it is a lot of times my starting point is just like, we don't have to make it about, okay, let's like solve the problem or identify everything, but like, let's just talk it through, because it's the hiding of these topics, kind of like what you said, it's putting a veneer over and suggesting that, no, it's done, there's no issues there.
This
That
would never
takes
happen
away.
today.
This would never happen today. Somebody is experiencing this right now, and probably many, many, many people.
Yeah, yeah.
And until we actually have the audacity to just say, hey, look, this happened, and like, could we just talk about this? We don't have to be about pointing fingers, but could we just put light on it until it goes away? Because really, it's in the darkness that these things happen, because we allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are so many other questions. I do have one that I really want to tackle, because I don't think that there's a lot of clarity around how Asian women can handle being in an environment of a bunch of white dudes and trying to tell herself, okay, it's not me. I just need to change myself to be more like a white dude. Right? Like that's pretty much the ongoing advice that people almost carry in their mind is like, I just have to change myself to be less like me. But then there's also this balance of authenticity. How would you give advice to somebody who is sitting in your seat all those years back when, I think there was a story where a member of your staff, a white guy, was like cutting you off and rolling his eyes and sighing every time you brought an idea. I've always wanted to come back to that. How would you handle that today?
Yeah, not one, many.
Yeah. I didn't want to overgeneralize.
Not all, but many.
Yeah.
That's a really, really great question, because the Asian women at Harvard Business School who actually did that study around, the current state of Asian women in the workplace, when they saw the studies in the end, they were a bit devastated. And their last question was, what do I do with this? And so I said, what should you do? What do you think you should do with this information? Because now you have all the information and you're about to graduate from Harvard Business School. What do you think the answer is? And they both said, I think the answer is I have to change myself. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because certain aspects of Asian culture that I value, humility, putting the team first, letting my work speak for itself. It doesn't feel like something I want to change. I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to be self-promoting. I don't want to step on other people. I want to do good work and have my work, speak for itself. So what do I do? And that's a really tough one. First, I would say, get this book, Big Asian Energy, an unapologetic guide.
I need, okay, so just to be clear, I feel like after this call, I should be writing you a check.
No.
As my publicist.
So, one is let's learn from each other. Let's stand on each other's shoulders, because, we're all dealing with the same thing. I think there's two parts. There's the you part, and then there's the environment part. Unfortunately, there are some environments that are so steeped in this culture that you can't change it, not quickly. So I would say Wall Street, for example, is pretty staunchly in this world, but that doesn't mean that you have to avoid Wall Street. But I think you have to be very, very, very choosy about the bank that you go to, the group that you go to, the manager that you're willing to work with. Developing a network of mentors to give you advice and feedback and protection when you need it. So, and maybe, or finding environments where you feel like you'll be set up to succeed. And there are environments, and, we try, for example, at Tatcha, to make that a real priority. So one is the environment. Just be aware of the environment that you're going to. Things will change, but they're not going to change overnight, because they haven't changed overnight yet. The other is the yourself piece of it. There's your personal code of ethics. Like, I believe in humility, and I believe in letting my work speak for itself. However, there's some things that I also have to acknowledge are cultural, that, like, it's okay for me to sit with and say, but do I need to always smile at everybody? Is it my job to make everybody feel, comfortable in the room and to be pleasing? and to be as small as I can be so that I don't ever offend anybody, because there are certain rooms in which that's just not the game. So you did a TikTok that I really loved. It was about ways that you used to handle being spoken over, and how your methodology has evolved. I spent my entire career being spoken over, and as soon as someone would start speaking, I would say, "I'm sorry," and I'd mute myself, and I'd wait for them to finish, and I may or may not ever pick up my topic again. As I have gone later on in my career, particularly when it's a behavioral pattern from the same person, I will stop them in the middle of it, and I'll say, "Excuse me, you've done that a lot. Let me finish what I'm saying, and then I'd love to hear what you're saying." And I will say it in a group setting, and that doesn't to me go against humility. It doesn't make me self-promotional. It doesn't make me rude. It just means that I'm saying, like, "Excuse me, I don't know if you've noticed, but you have a habit of cutting me off. I'd love to finish what I'm saying because I'm really interested in what you're saying." So I don't think that we have to betray our cultural values in order to also stand up for ourselves.
I completely agree. Absolutely. I like to think of it as, if we're talking to somebody, are they showing us the same courtesy? And if not, I don't see it as a judgment thing. That's just the way they communicate.
Yeah.
Some people, they love it when other people cut them off, and they'll cut them off, and that's just the way they communicate. Great. We'll play your playground.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we'll play by the rules of your playground.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be, and if I meet somebody who is much more respectful of boundaries and, not as outspoken, then great. I'll meet and play by your rules. It's just different cultural
A lot of
context.
it's cultural. I like how you're taking out the judgment piece of it too. So in my career, I was flying nonstop. I'm doing business in Japan, and in Japan, there's a whole way of doing things. And they have nuances to the way they communicate that don't exist here. So like if they're talking, oftentimes you might go, "Hi, hi, hi, hi," and it means I'm listening intensely. I'm tracking with you. I understand. In a different context, that might sound like cutting off. California communicates differently than the East Coast. So the way that people conduct meetings, and then France. I'd be in France quite a bit, and they value debate. And they're not scared to raise their voices and show emotion. I don't actually think that they are trying to be disrespectful. I think they debate passionately. And so I respect that, when in Rome. But I will tell you, as someone who's spent the last 27 years in the business world, it's much more, especially depending on what industries that you go in, it's much more like a cage match. So don't do ballet. They're not going to, they're not going to respect you for it.
Yeah. Meet them where they're at without self-minimizing, without self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to be fully engaged as your biggest, most powerful self.
Yeah. Can I tell you an analogy that I think is so interesting?
Yeah.
So I love MMA.
Okay.
And there are two sort of major MMA groups. There's the UFC in the US, and there's one FC in Asia. Equivalent. One's Asian, one's here. In the UFC, when two fighters are going to fight, they talk so much smack about each other. All right? They meet at the weigh-in. They put their fists up. And then you have to hold them back. And everything is chest thumping, and everything is aggression, and everything is a threat. And then when one knocks the other out, they celebrate. They run around, they celebrate, and and it's one type of energy. In the ONE FC, they're very respectful at weigh-in. They're very respectful going into the ring, and they talk about how they're honored to be able to compete against someone of this skill. It's been a dream of their whole life. When they fight, they're fighting. This is still a cage match, right? They are drawing blood. Things are breaking. But
they're not holding back.
Afterwards, when it's over, especially the Thai fighters when they do Muay Thai, when they're over, you know what they do? It's like they ignore everybody in the ring or outside the ring, and it's just the two of them, and they hold each other's heads, and they check on each other's wounds, and I can see them talking quietly to each other about, and I don't know what they're saying, but you can tell from the body language that they're paying respect. There's a lot of bowing to the other. And then when the announcer comes over and says, how do you feel? You won in this way. They say, that was one of the hardest competitions. This person is a master. That was an honor. You can still cage match, but there's a different way to do it. So I was so inspired by that. It was one of the most tender, respectful forms of competition I've ever seen.
I love it.
So, as I continue in the business world in different ways, and I continue, I would like to carry myself like a Muay Thai fighter, with respect, with honor.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And what does that look like as a leader? I would love to just end on that note because that's perfect, but I really would love to answer that question because I think that there's not many people who can answer this question. What does that vision of leadership look like? And why does it have a place, if anything? Like, why does it deserve as big of a place, if not more, than this kind of more westernized UFC, let's get aggressive in each other's faces way?
I think at the core of it is this belief, okay, the Western world, particularly capitalism, which, is informed by our modern view of economics, is informed by the idea of exceptionalism and also by the perfection of self-interest. That we've misunderstood economic theory and said, self-interest is a driving force of all efficient free markets, and that it will fix everything. So as long as you act in your own self-interest, then everything will work out. And now we know that not to be true. It doesn't take into account things like externalities and all the things that we're grappling with now in the news. I think self-interest is the antithesis of Asian culture. Asian culture has always been about the individual is second to the group, and and it's a completely different approach to life, to business, and I think it's why we show up so different culturally. So at the core of it, I think it's about understanding your personal code of ethics. You get to decide that for yourself. Every person gets to decide that for themselves. And then in whatever environment that you want to show up in, understand the environment. Is this a cage match or is this ballet? But then also operate in a way that is aligned with your personal code of ethics. So I love the Bushido Code and a lot of the writings from, Japanese business philosophy. I think there's a reason that they have more companies that are over 1,000 years old than any other country in the world. The reason I continue to go to Japan and study there is because there are some really unique things about the culture that I think, whether it's their personal longevity, they just live a long time, to their health span. They live a long time and they're really, really, really healthy, even though they work really hard.
Yeah.
And the longevity of their businesses, 1,000 years. That's incredible. They're doing something right. And they do trade with other countries. They do business with other countries, and they don't change who they are. So I try to keep learning about that.
I love that.
I do think that we can still be who we are. I don't fundamentally think we have to change.
Yeah. At the core of it, it is really what you touched on is who are we, right? What if there is no right answer? What if there is no, I have to be more blank. I have to be more Asian. I have to be more westernized. What if it's not? What if it's just, who are you at the core of this? How can you be more you? What is your style of leadership that you want to lean more into? And just, can you own that unapologetically?
Yeah, exactly. Just be more unapologetically you, but also be aware of where your characters and your characteristics and all that came from. Is it a mask or is it you? Because at some point in life, it's really freeing to drop the mask. It's a lot more fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. Vicky, this has been incredible. Of course. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words of advice for listeners or people who want to go and tackle the world and start their own ventures? Anything final?
I think starting your own company is also an act of self-actualization. That's why founders do it. It's very, very, very few founders who are truly just mercenaries, who just say, I have an idea, I want to make some money, in and out. Usually it's coming from a much deeper place. So I think doing a lot of introspection on what drives you, what calls you, try to move toward being called instead of being driven, will make the journey a lot more fun. And I think at the end of the day, if we solve for anything in this lifetime, it should be fun. There's this new term recently that I saw that I'm totally into. So before it was about a lifespan, how many years can I live? Then it was health span, how many years can I live healthy? Who wants to be 95 if you're going to be in the hospital for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
But the new term that I saw is joy span.
Oh, I love it. I need to write this down somewhere. Yeah.
New York Times just had an article about it. And it's like, well, who wants to live to 100 years if I'm going to be, anxious and sad and depressed and angry for 50? No,
Yeah.
I don't really care how long I live. I just want to feel joy. And I think the joy for me has come from finding things that I feel called to do. And I feel called to try to make things a little bit better for the people who are coming up behind me. So, and I think you're doing the same thing. So thank you. I love you. This has been very, very joyful for me.
Thank you so much, Vicky. It's my so much pleasure and joy to be able to have this conversation with you. Truly, this is freaking the best. I don't think you have anything to promote right now, right? I can't imagine that you have anything to promote yet.
No, I'm not promoting anything, and I've disappeared myself off the internet.
Yeah. So we're just gonna.
And so I would say if there's one thing, they can go find the Harvard Business School case study. I put it all in there.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you once again, Vicky, so much for your incredible and generous time spent with us today. Those of you who are listening and want to find out more, I highly recommend checking out the Harvard Business School study. It's a formal case study. It's called Vicky Tsai and Tatcha, Confronting Stereotypes. If you are nerdy enough to use the case number, it's case number 323007. It dives deeper into understanding the complexities of what it means to show up with these stereotypes, especially for many Asian Americans. And once again, thank you so much, Vicky.
Thank you. It's an honor.